In this video, we're going to talk about the TX textures and the benefit of using them and how to create them using the make.tx command line. And I'm going to illustrate this by showing the logs and explaining what Arnold does under the hood. So I have my images, which are located here. So these are the 4 images. We've only used 3 so far, and this is the output logs for Arnold. And I'm going to hit render at this point. And you can see it's going to start the process. And then there is a step here called generated tx4. And then the file name, and then generated tx4, and then the file name. And what happened is Arnold found all the textures and then converted them into this format .tx, and it's much faster to use this format because it has automatic MIP mapping. So if you have very high resolution textures like 16K or 8K and you're only viewing them very far away, Arnold will know what MIP map level to read from that texture, so it only reads the appropriate resolution, and that makes it much faster to read, and it's much more efficient. And every time we hit the render, Arnold will try to convert the textures and reuse them. And if it found that there is a TX file, it will skip the conversion and use this one. And there is a few attributes, few controls in the render settings to control this behavior. So if I switch to the out context and select the Arnold node and go under the texture tab and under the properties of the render settings under textures, there is this auto generate TX textures and auto MIP map. And this tells Arnold to automatically pre-convert all the textures, and this checkbox here tells Arnold to reuse the TX, to use a TX texture instead of a JPEG if found one. So if our input here, even if we use a JPEG at the end, if there is in that same folder a file called TX, Arnold will automatically switch to that. And I'm going to show the command line version of how to generate textures. And if we browse to the installation of the H2A plugin and go under scripts bin, there's this command line here called make.tx. And Arnold is using pretty much the same functionality that this command line has. And we can also help in the process of when we create textures, we can help by converting all the textures into TX, and that removes some of the overhead of how fast the render can start. And if you are in a studio, this would make a lot of speed up, because the process will happen at the creation time of texture, or whenever an artist publishes textures, there's a tool that would kick off all the conversion process or the generation of the TX textures to be used, instead of having Arnold to generate convert each one at render time. And the way I would use it under Linux is I am going to create a new shell, and we first need to add this path here to the environment variable. So we can do something like this. We can say export, and then path equal the path to the location here, which is this one, and then comma $path. And this means append this new path here to the existing environment path. And if I do this and execute it, I will now have access to the make.tx from the command line, and I don't have to browse to this location to access it. So I'm going to type in make.tx. You can see we get all these options here. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to find the folder where I have my textures, and I'm going to delete the one that Arnold generated. So I'm going to delete these guys. I'm going to copy the path and browse to it, and I'm going to clear it. and do an LL. So now I have these textures. And to convert them to a TX, we simply call the make TX command and the name of the texture, and it will automatically convert. It will automatically start generating a TX, and it is now done. And we can either, once we are done with converting all of them, so let's do the diffuse. Should take a few seconds. And let's do the bump. So now I have all of them converted, and in the shader I can simply use the TX for the bump, the TX for the specular. Sorry, I did not do the TX for the specular. It's fine, we can use the same one for the bump, just to test with, and for the diffuse. And now if I go to the render settings and uncheck used existing TX textures, because what this will do is if we have a JPEG texture, it will automatically read the TX, but because we're explicitly giving it the TX, I want to uncheck this and show you something in the logs. And now I have it here. If I hit render again, we should we will not see any textures being converted because we're providing Arnold with everything, and that makes the render the startup time for the render much faster, especially when you have a lot of textures. And one last thing, I want to show how to add the environment variable, the path to your environment. So I'm going to create a new shell, or let's use this one. So here I'm going to type in gedit, and we're going to add them to the bash rc file. And right now it's empty, and I can simply paste the command to export this, and then every time, now if I save it, it will be available anytime I want, and we can use it to convert the textures. And in production, you generally want to do this as part of the texturing pipeline or publishing the textures. And I think that's pretty much it. Thanks for watching, and see you in the next video.